Hi, Micah.
Hi.
It's really nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
And I just wanted to let you know that I'd like to start with just a period of silence. And that's a time where you can go within and just see what's coming up about your spiritual life that maybe you want to talk about. And I will ask you some questions along the way, just helping you go deeper into whatever it is that has been going on inside.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we just take a few minutes and take some time and settle. And then when you feel like you want to talk, just start talking.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll just settle in.
I think a big thing that's been highlighted to me since I've been comparing a lot of experiences from my time back in Africa, then also here, a big highlight I think is just his love, God's love for everything inside of all of creation, really. And then ultimately how we're supposed to become love to everybody around us. So just realizing, for me, a lot of I connect with God really well through worship, through times of worship. So I'd get like visions or dreams or whatever those may be during worship times. And I remember one specifically of this kind of like big picture, drawn out picture of like all the world, and that like from the bottom to the top, every single person, and kind of just being shown that God does not love anybody anymore, any less, no matter what, and that there's nothing that anybody could do to make him love you anymore or any less as well. So that's just been a big highlight to me. And then being back here as well, like asking myself a question of like, how much did Jesus meet in through me in that conversation, whether it was like a 5 minutes here or just 30 seconds there, like how much of Jesus was shown through that, or how much love was shown in that. So yeah.
That experience of God's loves everyone, and nothing you can do that you could change that, and then it's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to just talk more about that experience, where you were, what was happening, and what it was like to get that image and that vision?
Yeah. I forget the exact timeline because a lot of it was a blur, but I've shared this story in the past with other people. We had this day where we went to the slums in this area, in this city that we were in Uganda, and we saw people living in 30 people to like a mud hut. We saw little children walking around that were sadly intoxicated, that were drunk, like 3-year-olds. So just seeing a lot of hard stuff, poverty, redefining that level like 3 times with like an hour of just seeing how poor, how little people have. But we had our translator with us, this ministry we were working with, and we talked to this one lady, this older lady just sitting on the ground there. I mean, everybody was everywhere, but our translator told us this lady was like raising her hands up and like seemed to be in worship. I mean, we were sharing some verses with people, but she really seemed like elated, and all around her was the opposite of that. It's sad seeing that level of poverty. But our translator told us, she was basically saying to tell us, she's like, I know God loves me because he lets me eat the scraps off of like the market floor every day or something. And she was 100% confident of God's love based on that fact that she was like barely scraping by, but she was completely joyful, completely happy, completely satisfied with knowing that he loved her through that circumstance. And I think back here, and not everybody has those ups and downs, but just seeing that level of confidence of love, of that stuff doesn't make you happy in whatever situations, that's ultimately like God's love, and understanding that. So back to that dream. I forget what it was, but it was just some night. It was during worship, and in the middle of worship, just slowing down and asking God, like, what do you want to show me? And I kind of remember, like I was saying, almost like moving across, I don't want to say like a magic carpet or something, but kind of moving across the land with God or with Jesus by my side, and him just showing his unconditional love, his giant heart for the entire world and everybody in it. It was just, I always knew that God loves everybody, and that's something that's regularly talked about, but to kind of see it and experience it with him in that sense was really powerful.
Being on a magic carpet with God and Jesus.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Going deeper into that experience of God loves everyone. Is there more that you notice about being and with God and Jesus and moving and what you were seeing? Just, you want to take a minute and just see what you notice more about that.
Sure. I think something is him showing that not only that his love is unchanging, but it's also something that's active, I guess, in a sense. It could have just been one scene and one set of people in one place, but it was moving, and it was everybody, and it was growing in a sense, like it was never stagnant per se. And then also just feeling this general call that I'm supposed to grow in love to everybody all the time, to love everybody always. That's something that hard to do, that always growing and always failing, but always trying your best to just learn to love everybody always.
And what was that like to have God invite you into that growth and that emerging love for everyone, and to be moving at the same time? Yeah,
it was really powerful. I was, after that, I was just trying to process all of that, like, wow, like moving, being the intimacy of relationship with him, and how like he wants that to be shared and for everybody to come into that, to be welcome into that. It's not for somebody and not for somebody else. It's not something that should be hidden or should be not shared. Just that level of relationship that everyone's called into, where you can experience his love and then give it away. That we're not called to just know it and keep it and hold on to it, but to give it away freely to everyone around us. And
that you use that word intimacy. Are there more words that you can use about that feeling of intimacy with Jesus?
Yeah, it's just like any relationship, I think. When I was younger, it was harder to have this idea of relationship with God or with Jesus or with the Holy Spirit, but as I grew in that, I realized that it's like any relationship. To grow in it, you need communication, trust, honesty, everything that a normal human one-on-one relationship requires. So it's honestly just diving deeper into trust, talking to him whenever you might have a question. It's not like he doesn't want to not answer you or hide from you or anything. It's a open, loving arms. So it's just diving deeper into a more real, more meaningful, more intimate relationship for me.
Let's say more about the trust that you feel like's been growing over a number of years. As you open up and say more to him, or get more back from him, and having this experience of really he's showing you. the world.
Yeah.
Say more about that trust that you notice growing.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, when I was younger, it was more of a boxed God, of a boxed faith. But as you grow more, I feel like it's more out of the box, It's trusting him that he has ultimately the best plans for you all the time, and that a lot of the time we can't see that, or we can't realize that, especially in trials, especially in hard times. You're like, why did this happen to me? But in that moment you can't see it, but trusting that everything happens for a reason, in a sense, and that trust with him is honestly the best route to go down, instead of trusting yourself in many situations. I see a lot of past choices or whatever that were independent, that perhaps I didn't bring to God, and them not going nearly as well as they could have, or even failing. And then when you do start from the ground up and bring it to him and trust him through that experience, it's always way better. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And was there more about that? I mean, I'm just taken by the movement, that this is not like a fixed image. It's something that's God's showing you and taking you somewhere. Is there more about that? Moving.
Yeah, for me, I feel this general call that perhaps one day in ministry or whatever, but I feel like that it's perhaps something that's not like around here, not based in this country per se, but maybe overseas in Africa or wherever it may be. I just felt, honestly, it was very fast movement. It wasn't like slow. It was very, very fast movement. So I feel like it's just this calling to mobilize, in a sense, to make him known, make his love known. Yeah.
That word, mobilize. You want to talk about being mobilized?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people interpret it in a lot of different ways, but one that I understand it as is kind of like going out into the nations, or biblically, sharing his word with everybody, like the Great Commission per se, just saying yes to that call of sharing his love with the world, sharing his truth, sharing, what he calls us to. And that can look a million different ways as well. But for me, highlighted there was just his love specifically. I think if we live as people of love, people are just generally attracted to that. Like, what makes you different? Why are you so peaceful? Why are you so kind? Why are you so whatever all the time? And then you're like, well, this is because of Jesus. So, you don't need to perhaps like shove whatever down people's throat, but living as a person of love tends to be really.
And say more about that love you feel from Jesus. Yeah.
I mean, I've felt it many times, and know that he's always there every step of the day and every step of the way with you. There's not any time that he's not present, but there's specific times where you feel his love very powerfully. Like I was saying, during worship sometimes, I feel like he's right in the room next to us, or that he has his hand on my shoulder, or whatever it may be. Just this very intimate, loving, and I also believe that God can kind of be what you need when you need it, in a sense. That he has so many characteristics, facets to his face, that he is what you need, in a sense, wherever that may be.
Jesus' hand on your shoulder. Can you say more about what that feels like?
Yeah. I remember it during one worship time in Uganda. Our team was all worshiping in this little room together, and we were singing How He Loves Us, or some song that was actually about love. And I just felt like these two hands on my shoulders, and I was like, wow, this is, for me in that time, I think that was what I needed, right? So he kind of shows up in that way when you need it. It's just like a gentle, loving touch of like Jesus.
I wondered if you want to take a minute and just go back to that place where Jesus had his hands on your shoulders. Just take a minute to enjoy that. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
happens there?
I feel like the word with is highlighted to me.
Yeah.
That he's with me always, with you always. That his presence is always there, and that, you know, he's always knocking at our door and just waiting for us to answer, waiting for us to open up.
Yeah. And what happens in you when you know that Jesus is with you?
It's just this peace, this calmness, this boldness, I guess, to share. It's not like something that I want to keep. It's something that I want to like let others know about, you know.
Yes. The word boldness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the boldness.
Yeah. It's something that that I learned more about in Africa, specifically sharing with others and realizing this power and authority that we have through him, not of ourselves but of him, and just this willingness to share his words or his love and, you know, his actions through or with anybody in really any situation. This kind of, you know, that I don't need to have my faith inside, that it can be something that's outward showing all the time. So yeah.
There was one more place that you talked about this woman that raised her arms and then talked about the joy that she felt and the love that she was experiencing. Is there anything more about that piece that you see now talking about it?
Yeah. It's just like that radiating light that you can see on somebody, you know, when you're just overwhelmed with peace, even in like the craziest circumstances, when you can just slow down and accept him and his peace and his presence that he just wants to pour into you. Just looking back at that time and that lady, everything like around her, all that, I've never seen like that level of poverty, of pain, of sadness, and yet there, like sitting in the dirt, was this lady, was in the midst of it.
She was in the midst of it.
Yeah, just so much peace and this big smile on her face. It was awesome.
It sounds like she had that boldness too.
Yeah, she wasn't.
Really
she wasn't scared to, you know, let the world that she knows, like that she's loved and.
She was like your teacher.
Yeah, that's the big thing I realized a lot of the time, that although we were the teachers or the ones going out and sharing, almost always more is poured into you than you're pouring out. So.
What do you think she poured into you?
Just that whole experience, I think that day, I remember a lot of it being kind of summed up in her, that idea that you don't need stuff to be happy, and it's talked about a lot, but seeing that firsthand, that this lady didn't have anything, and she was 100% content knowing that God loved her because she survived. She had the basics. Just having that whole, that he loved everybody in those slums just as much as, you know, he loves you and me. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing those amazing stories.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there anything that you've noticed going through, like speaking them out loud, that you had before?
I'm not too sure. I've shared the stories a lot, so each time I kind of remember something a bit differently. But like I was saying at the beginning, just his love and the way that he wants us to live like he did, to love everybody always. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.